Welcome to R-Rated Christianity. Glad to have you guys back this week. If you haven't been R-Rated Christianity before, let me just do a quick intro here. Every week, we try to make a rationally compelling case for Christ and for Christianity in a way that's logically consistent, that's objectively true, and subjectively engaging. And I'm stealing that from a philosopher by the name of Doug Gruthis, who wrote a book called Christian Apologetics, and I thought that was the best way to define it. It's not just something we do. We believe that it's something that every Christian should do because we believe that the Bible teaches that every Christian should do it. And we ask a question, frankly, are you prepared at any given time as a believer in Christ to defend the thoughts and the priorities and the teachings of the Lord Jesus Christ? It's an important question because that's our job description, to go out into the world and be a light and to shine a light on his priorities and to encourage people to come to him, to place their trust in him and in live a life that is worthy of the work that he's done in their hearts. So we hope every week we come in here to address issues that are perplexing people. And it doesn't matter what the issue is. We get into theological things where we talk about the scripture. We get into the interpretation of the scriptures. We don't shy away from controversy. There are controversial things that we don't think should be controversial, and there are things that are not controversial enough, frankly. And we try to address those issues from the prism of the scripture. Well, one of the issues that we're addressing this week, and you may notice that my brother Nico is not with me this week. He had to attend to something very, very urgent. But we have an upgrade. We have his daughter. We have the venerable Maya LaHood. And we have my son, Jaden Arujo, right? So these guys are upgrades. So we're JV, right? So no pressure. No pressure. So we're going to address a couple of things from the perspective of Generation Z. That's anybody really who's been born after 2000. And that would be you. So 2008, Maya?
Yes.
All right, there you go. So we have some bona fide Gen Zers here. And we're going to wrestle with some things. And I'm going to ask you guys to kick us off. Maya.
Okay.
I sent you and Jaden a clip. An excerpt from a Barna Research study from their State of the Church report in 2025. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to ask you to read what they said, and then I'm going to put you guys on the spot.
Okay. According to?
That's the one.
Okay. So according to the State of the Church 2025 report from Barna Research, 66% of U.S. adults now say they've made a personal commitment to Jesus, and that this commitment is very important to their lives. This is also a jump of 12% points since 2021. That represents nearly 30 million more adults following Jesus in just 4 years. What's most interesting... Oh, wait, that's it.
That's okay.
Do I read that too?
Well, I'm going to pause you there, and yes, you can continue, but let me pause you there for a moment because I want people to digest the stat.
Right.
So 66, this is brand new, 2025, 66% of people who are queer, U.S. adults of all ages, are saying that they have made a personal commitment to Jesus. Mm-hmm. And there's been a 12-point increase in 4 years. It's pretty significant.
It's crazy.
12 points. Personal commitment to Jesus. And so how's this relevant to you? Because Gen Z is leading that. Mm-hmm. And I think I mentioned that in there, right? Mm-hmm. I said, hey, what's significant about this and why it should matter to you guys are leading the charge. Your generation, while it's 12% among U.S. adults, it's like 15 points among Gen Z. Mm-hmm. So does that jive? I mean, just sort of as a gut hunch. You guys live in Gen Z. You are part of Gen Z. Does that sort of at a 35,000-foot level, does that make sense? Does that resonate? You guys go to a Christian school. Right. So if it doesn't resonate at all, I got a lot of other questions. But just generally speaking, thoughts? There's no right or wrong answer. I'm just curious to see if you guys are feeling it out there. There's a Gen Z word. We don't actually think through things, right? We just feel.
Well,
do you feel it?
Like feeling the Christianity? Or?
Do you feel the Gen Z out there? I'll keep using that.
Do I feel the Gen Z?
In Gen Z, do you feel that there seems to be a gravitating towards Jesus? Do you see people? Do you hear people talk more and more in those terms, or not really? Or are you neutral about that? There's no right or wrong.
Honestly,
yep.
I think it's pretty neutral.
Okay.
You know, it just depends on like the type of people you hang around.
Mm-hmm.
And like I'd say a lot of my friends like recently have been gravitating towards Christianity. But like if you just go out there to literally anywhere that's beyond a Christian school, I would say that it's kind of a sensitive topic. I think people just want to do like what they want to do, and Christianity, they don't really want to talk about that, you know. But I think the perks about going to a Christian school is that you get to hear about it constantly, and it kind of just plants more seeds.
Man, you gave me a lot of red meat. Very honest. You guys go to the same Christian school.
Yeah.
And Jaden said it's kind of neutral. He feels kind of neutral about it, but then he added that it depends
On who you hang around.
on you hang around.
I don't
Boy,
know.
that's a loaded topic. Go ahead.
I mean, I think that there's a lot of people who like just because they, believe it, or like just because they say like, oh, I go to Christian school, I'm a Christian, that doesn't mean that they're like fully convinced by it, or like they're willing to, defend their faith that they, wear around at a Christian school. And so I think kind of like what he said, it depends. Like if you go beyond our school, it's just, it just really depends on the people you hang out with. And I think to society and to Gen Z, being, or not even just Gen Z, but just like the world, being Christian isn't like, I guess, like, quote unquote cool. Like most people, because everything that people want to do completely contradicts what Christianity and what Jesus says we should do. So like how people have fun, it's like not what you should be doing in like Christianity. And so it's kind of hard for people to want to follow Jesus in a society that tells them the exact opposite. So
So on a given week, when you're interacting with your friends, how many times do you have conversations about Christianity? Here we go. 5 days a week, right? You guys are there 7-8 hours a day. How many times in your day-to-day conversations with your buddies, with anybody, does the topic of Christ or Christian living or God, the Bible, and I'm not talking about in Bible class. Yeah, I get it. But I'm just, you know what I'm saying? Just routine combos. Be raw, be honest. I want the unfiltered truth. Don't worry about what the principle might
I mean,
be.
if you want to be honest, I'd say that it's not really talked about, you know? Like, I think it's just more one-on-one. I've noticed recently, like, a lot of my friends, like, we'll talk about it one-on-one, but whether it's at the lunch table, like, if we're all hanging out, if we're doing something, like, I don't think, it just really doesn't come up, you know? Like, I don't know. It just depends on the friend, and usually they want to talk about it one-on-one, but it just comes down to the fact that it's just seen as a sensitive topic.
Follow-up question. What's the context? When you do have that conversation, so you're not talking about it in groups. I get it. Nobody's sitting around at the lunch table talking about the real meaning of John chapter 3. Right? So I get it. But so you're having one-on-one, though. This comes up in one-on-one conversations. Under what context? Like, is it because the crap hit the fan? Somebody's going through a tough time? Is it because, it's just spontaneous? Hey, how about that John chapter 3, what Jesus says in verse 16? I mean, is it spontaneous, or is it because something has happened in life and the topic of Jesus ties to it?
Yeah, I mean, it's not really like I said, talked about. It's just definitely when the crap hits the fan. Especially recently, I have a buddy that is going through a really hard time, and like we both agreed that like we both want to put our trust more in Jesus, and that's when it plays a role, because I think that as my friends get older and as I get older, that when things kind of start collapsing, we just are more leaning towards putting our like towards Jesus and stuff.
Okay.
But like I said, like if it's in groups, like no one really talks about it at all. Like,
Okay. Well, so far we're not deviating from the rest of humanity. Most people tend to gravitate to Jesus when the crap hits the fan. What are your thoughts?
I mean, I'm not going to say it's like I talk about it every single day, but I don't never talk about it. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like kind of what he said, it comes up, and not just when crap hits the fan for me. Like, I feel like it just, I don't know, like, I mean, like we go to CBC sometimes on Wednesdays.
Yeah.
And so usually like, that's a way to keep it in conversation. But when you say it like that, it sounds kind of bad, just because like when you say you only go to Jesus when crap hits the fan, because you should go to Jesus always, like in the highs and the lows. But unfortunately, like that's just the truth, because I think going to a Christian school, it's kind of understood like, oh, everyone's Christian, everyone has the same beliefs, we all follow the same path, so therefore like it's just kind of understood. We don't really need to like talk about it, kind of like what he said, like at lunch, like it's not really something that's talked about. But of like what he said, like in deep conversations, like someone needs advice. It's like, oh, Jesus, but
Yeah.
you know, it shouldn't just be that.
Do you ever worry? Do you ever worry that as believers in Christ, as you look around, just from your own life or maybe your friend groups, do you ever pause and stop and think, is there really a significant difference? Like if somebody walked in here, and apart from chapel and Bible class, if somebody walked in here, I mean, and maybe a cross or two or a Bible verse on the wall, apart from those things that are overtly Christian, would they know that you guys are Christian?
No.
I want raw. I want
No, I don't think so.
I would say no.
I would say no.
you know I can't leave it there.
Well, it's just because like
I gotta ask why.
when I think I don't know, everyone just like what you said, like it looks like just another school, like besides the crosses on the walls and chapel and stuff like that. People for the most part they act the same, they talk the same, they treat each other the same way, and it's like not something, you know, that should be the case, but it's just I mean it's kind of hard to, even though we go to a Christian school, it's just I don't know what you think.
Are you worried that because at a gut level you say it almost seems like we ought to be talking more about this, since, you know, this is without our faith we're nothing, right? I think you would agree with that as a believer. Without your faith, what are you? You exist. And so you at a gut level you feel like I should be. This should be more and more part of the way I think and the way that I talk. And yet it's hard. Like how do you do it?
Right.
What do you do? Like if you try to bring it up, you might seen as fake or artificial or plastic and strange. And I guess I'm trying to come in sort of from a backdoor level to say I think that's a concern. I think that's an issue, but I don't think that's an exclusively a Gen Z problem. I think it's a Christian culture problem. That's part of the problem. I think that I hate to admit it, but I think Gen Z has learned that from you know, previous generations. We don't live in a vacuum.
Right.
And so we pick up good things and we pick up bad things, you know, from the culture. And so I ask these questions because I'm reading these trends and I'm seeing a lot of personal commitment to Jesus language. I'm hearing it and reading it on a frequent basis. As you guys know, my son knows that. I know you know that you know, we try to live in the stats here just for trends to see what's going on in the Christian world. And so I want to hone in on the personal commitment to Jesus for a moment, because the data, which I didn't share with you, also says that your generation, while it's claiming more and more personal commitments to Jesus, it's staying away from church. It doesn't want to be affiliated with church. Your peers don't want to be affiliated with church, and they don't want to be affiliated with Christianity. And they don't want to be actually affiliated with any religion. So there seems to be a split. We're all for Jesus, but not really for church. I'm a little worried about that. And so I'm relying on you guys to comfort me and tell me, why is it that Uncle George, should not be worried about that? Am I the only one who think that's the problem? I want to make a personal commitment to Jesus, but I'm not really interested in church. And I'm not really interested in affiliating myself. And I should have rephrased that. I'll affiliate myself with Jesus all day long, but I'm not going to affiliate myself with church, and I'm not going to affiliate myself with Christianity. I think that's an issue. Just me. And that you guys seem to be leading the charge in that regard. Why would that be? Any thoughts?
Leading the charge to
With that sentiment, that view that, hey, personal commitment to Jesus, but at the same time kind of rejecting church.
I can't speak from like personal experience because like I love church, I go to church and stuff like that. But just, I think for other people, it's more like, I don't know, like church hurt, I guess. Just like I don't know. I'm trying to think.
What's that term you used?
Church hurt.
Interesting. I've never.
I mean, I don't know. I'm just
Church hurt.
I don't know.
Church hurt. Not church-er, but church hurt.
Church hurt.
Interesting.
Like,
no, elaborate on that.
like hurt from the church. Like people in the church have hurt them, or just like pastors or just other people in the church, or like the church has just mistreated them, or just not represented Christ well. And so that makes them just not want to go back to church. That makes them not want to go to church. And so, I mean, that's the only thing I can think of, unless it's just, you know, they just have this mindset that's like no religion, like just relationship, which I think relationship is like very important, but I still think you need Christianity. You can't just have Jesus, like you need Christianity and like the teachings of it.
No, it's really good. And I just want to be very clear. I am not trying to pull something out of you guys like as individuals necessarily. I'm asking you to interpret your generation. I'm asking you to kind of, some of it, I expect some of it, maybe a lot of it you'll relate to. I relate to that. No, I don't relate to that. But I want you to shed some insight on why you think it might be true. That's what I'm after here.
I also is another thing in mind, but just like there's a lot of people in today that like they just don't want to follow like Christianity, but they make up this like Jesus in their mind that's just like Jesus will accept me for who I am, Jesus will love me no matter what, they'll do whatever. So they want Jesus, their own Jesus, but then the second they get to church and the second that they realize what Christianity is, they're like, wait a second, this isn't what I signed up for. I don't like this. This isn't the Jesus that loves me and accepts me. So I think they're just kind of making their own Jesus and just
Interesting.
you know,
I think thoughts.
Yeah, actually. I think there's like a motivation thing behind it too. You know, I don't know if I could say this, but I don't really go to youth group. I mean, that's where me and my kind of differ. But
Of course you can say it.
I could honestly speak the same for all my friends. Like, we do not go to youth group at all. You know,
If you were to pick one word, if the word youth group comes up in your friend group, one word. This is R-rated, but not tonight. If you could think of,
so it's not.
If you could think of one word to describe you or the average youth group person, think, you know, your friends, your friends group, think about youth group. What would it be?
Like, if I asked them youth group one word,
Yeah.
I think they would say lame.
You know, that kind of was coming up.
That's what came to my mind.
I think it was the Holy Spirit, Sala, that was communicating that word to me.
That's what
You know, the word lame. But why is that?
Well, I mean, it's because I think like everyone's been through different things, and I think, you know, when I went to my own Christian camp this summer and, you know, kind of experiencing and jumping into that whole world, a lot of these youth groups and Christian camps, they all try to promote the same Jesus for everybody, and everybody's got a different backstory. So I just think that, like, say, I know like a lot of youth groups do like games, right? Am I right on that?
I mean, yeah. But,
Right on that? Okay.
Mine doesn't, but
So like,
some do.
I don't know, like, say like Johnny's gone through a lot of stuff, right? And like he's struggling with so much, and he's like, all right, I'm gonna try out youth group, and like the first thing they're playing is like Duck Duck Goose. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, just like, and it just seems unserious in the moment. And but you know, you look at like Bethany, you know, who's been raised in a whole just names, who's been raised in a whole Christian household and really tries to follow God, may enjoy the game, you know, because that's what she knows. But it's just all so different. So also tying back to the motivation thing, like they'll say they follow Jesus for the comfort of it, but they'll do whatever they want. And a lot of those choices they make aren't really great. So with those choices behind their head, it kind of shuts down the motivation to want to drop things and follow God and go to youth group and go to church and do all these things. And plus, like, a lot of people don't want to sit through the services, you know? So, yeah.
So there's a lack of relevance. They're not connecting. They seem kind of disconnected.
I would say there's a disconnection. I don't know. Or like it kind of like an old school thing too, you know, like church on Sunday. Like, it's just like, oh, like,
Okay, give me an example of an activity that you think would actually be not lame. That actually, if it happened in youth group, you'd be like, oh my gosh, this is actually a youth group that you think would be really great. Seriously, that would be pertinent.
I mean,
relevant.
it's different for everybody. Like, I have my own thing, right? Like, I love one-on-one. You know, that's my favorite, especially if it's someone who truly walks with the Lord. You know, I can talk to them, open up to them, like, say whatever I want. But I think, I don't know, like, it's just youth group already has this thing where it's just viewed as lame and not very fun. Just like, why am I here? Like, oh, my parents sent me here. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah. I feel like I feel like we need to give a shout out to Pastor Dave over at Hillside. I'll tell you why, because I'm going to tie in what Jaden's saying here. This brother, we've been to many youth groups, and that's pretty much been your assessment of every single youth group, pretty consistently. One-on-one. Got to give a shout out to Pastor Dave. He's connected with you, just as an example. He's connected with you one-on-one. Yes?
yes, sir, yeah.
If I'm putting words in your mouth, you correct me. You feel like you can have a conversation literally about anything,
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Pastor Dave. And I'm wondering if that's the case with the average church leader, church pastor? Can you literally have a one-on-one conversation literally about anything? Like if you were talking to your best friend who the difference between maybe them and a church leader is that the church leader walks with God or is more mature or whatever. But if you could take the personality of your best friend and put it in a church leader who also walks with God and is disciplined and is mature and will tell you the truth, not just what you want to hear, that would be, seems to me, an ideal church leader or an ideal youth pastor or whatever. And so I only bring up that example because it's not like there's no one around. There are people who are walking with God in church who you can talk to. And so I'm grateful for Pastor Dave. There's others. You just haven't met him yet. But the point is that are church leaders really willing to have conversations that go down some really uncomfortable and some dark, some because you guys, your generation's dealing with some nasty stats in terms of mental health and depression and suicidal ideation. A lot of it's tied back to the fact that you are uniquely social media birds. I mean, you are. I mean, social media kind of came on the scene officially really in 2010, Salo, I think. We've had about 15 years of research. You guys are the social media generation. And yet, with all of the ways to reach people, the conclusion is that you guys are the most socially isolated because people are basically a screen. You're not having that one-on-one interaction. And so you're feeling isolated, and yet everybody's comparing themselves with everybody online. And so they're comparing themselves not to real people, but to, versions of the people that they want you to see. And so there's a loneliness out there and so forth. And so you guys are dealing with some intense emotional ambiguity. And so it is important to have those one-on-one conversations. Can you relate to that in any way? I mean, you find that you can connect on that level?
Like a one-on-one? I agree, like 1,000%. I think having someone that you can just talk to doesn't have to be like the same person every time, but just someone that, you respect and that walks with the Lord. Like, for example, like he has Pastor Dave. I have Crystal Cox.
Great.
She's amazing.
Shout out to Crystal Cox.
Yeah, shout out to Crystal Cox.
I hope Crystal's watching. Crystal, we love you.
Crystal.
Right.
Make sure you're watching. But
get an endorsement here from somebody important.
Yeah, I love her so much. She's, she's like she's like a big sister, more of like,
Yes.
that's what it feels like. I can talk to her about anything, and she's just experienced a lot, and so she can give me a lot of good advice, and I know she walks in the Lord, and I can see that, and it's so evident in her life, and I think it just gives me a lot of comfort and peace knowing that, I'm not perfect, like she's not perfect, and I think having someone like a mentor or just having someone that you can talk to is just so important, and I think a lot of people, I would say like me and Jane are probably like some of the very like small amount of people in like our school or generation that like actually have some sort of mentor to talk to, just because it's not something that I think people need. They're kind of just like, oh, I have Jesus, or like, oh, I'll figure it out myself and stuff like that. And like, yes, you do have Jesus, like he's there for you, it's enough. But what if like you don't, there's just stuff that comes in between that, and it's just, I think it's important.
Thank you. And I'm worried about what you said a little bit earlier, and I want to jump back on it with you guys. I do, because you said it seems like people are kind of creating their own Jesus.
Yeah.
And so when they say, and that's my concern, a personal commitment to Jesus, I'm not interested in church, because when they walk in church, there may be some, and some of the stats say that it's church hurt, where there's hypocrisy in the church and people aren't living up to the ideals of the faith. By the way, newsflash, that's always going to happen. You put more than one human being in a room, expect that.
Yeah.
That's just the way it's going to be. But to your point, they're walking into church, and if a church starts to actually preach the gospel and starts talking about what it means to be a disciple, somebody who follows Christ, and just profess Christ, but you're actually following Christ, they might say, oh my goodness, I don't think I'm able to do that. I'm not interested in that. And then they actually start saying, well, that doesn't sound very inclusive. Yeah. This doesn't sound very diverse in here. You start hearing language of the culture, right? And so... and there's a turnoff. So it's not church hurt, but there's a turnoff from the church. Either these people are being hypocritical, or what they're selling I'm not interested in because it sounds hateful. And that's usually where it ends. There's no follow-up or explanation. And so they're creating this caricature Jesus, where he's sort of a big, warm and fuzzy dude. And that Jesus, that's not the real Jesus, is it? No. And so how do we bridge that gap? You guys seem to have your pulse on that. So what are you going to do about it? So what's the solution though? I mean, how do we communicate this problem? Because it's one thing for me and your dad to be talking about it here with church leaders or just sort of talking about the stats and talking about what we recommend. But you guys are on the front lines and you're the future of the church. So what should you do? What can you do? Are you already doing some of it? Yeah.
I'd say for like recently, I've been doing it more. Like whether it just comes to the friend, but I think it just really comes from the type of person. Like say you got this one guy who kicked out of his house. Like totally on drugs, like just life a mess, and this person, like I said, like who comes from the church since their birth, right? From their family, and they try to tell the dude that God's real. They try to like tell him about Christianity.
Jesus loves you.
I don't think he's gonna take him very seriously. I think it comes from the person.
But you're not suggesting that the only way to be an authentic Christian is to go out and sin a lot, so then you can sort of put all these medals of sin on your chest and say, "Now listen to me." Words in your mouth. Surely you're not suggesting that. What would you? Because what the person who's been a Christian forever is saying is true, but they're not being taken seriously. So then what?
It's not really a then what, because the person who, like the person who walked with God and Christianity all their life, I would say that they planted a seed, because I think
that's a good answer.
Every single time they always walk away and it's going to be on their mind.
Interesting.
So I don't think they're doing
don't
nothing.
Give up.
They're not.
Don't say nothing just because you've been a relatively faithful Christian. There's nothing wrong with that. And there's plenty of people, I knew people like that who grew up. I was not a faithful Christian when I was a young man. I was not. But I had friends who absolutely were. And I would look at them like that, almost scornfully. Like, who the hell are you to talk to me about my sin? And you haven't been through anything that I've been through, so you're no one to relate to me. Take your gospel and shove it. And this is from me. I actually called myself a Christian while I was saying that. It's interesting when we're bitter and we're hurt, the things that we say. So plant the seed. God's going to water that. Any other thoughts?
I think what he said was good. Honestly, like there's really no then what, because salvation and just like following Jesus is like an open invitation.
Yes.
But it's only to those who, actually take it and actually want to follow. It's like a two-way thing. It's not one-sided. It's like they also have to. So there's only so much you can do. You've done your part, you just be faithful and you be a disciple, and the Great Commission, like go into all nations, like baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, telling them, about me. That's definitely not what it says. I don't know it word for word, but just do what Jesus called you to do as a follower of Christ, and that is, tell other people about Jesus, even when it's hard, and even when, people are gonna make fun of you, or like, oh, who are you to tell me, blah, blah, blah. Like, do it anyways. Like, Jesus went through that. Like, just do it ashamed. Like, don't do it ashamed, but like, do it, under pressure. Do it no matter the circumstances, because that's what we're called to do in life. And then, the gift is eternal life. So
I'm not going to lie to you guys. I love what you're saying, because to make disciples of all men, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Great Commission. Your pop loves that.
And that's why
Matthew. Yeah, he loves Matthew 28:18. That's right. It's probably embedded in your brain. You just don't know it. This is Salo, by the way.
Hi.
But before we answer, will Gen Z step up for Christ? Let's say, what would it take for you to step up for Christ? Let's say, because do you think that the Gen Z generation today is too entitled? Too entitled that they want everything comfortable.
Yeah.
And because they're so full of information on their phone that they go to church and like you, because they're the same thing, you get bored real easily. And it's okay to get bored, I think, but they're not willing to get bored, or they're not willing to accept that there's a different flavor out there, right? Do you think that's a reason that Gen Z doesn't step up? How do we fix your problem?
My problem?
Don't take it personally.
Your problem.
No. It's personal. It's personal because for me, when I say I don't like this about church, I always think, okay, how can they fix it? More than just because anybody can complain about anything. There's a lot of complainers out there. But how do you fix it? So, for example, like people, like your friends and you, how do you think the church should fix the problem to take care of people like you? That you don't go to youth service, or that you think it's lame. How does the church fix that?
How does the church fix that?
Well, Salo's asked you the same
Yeah.
question I asked you, just differently, but it's an important question, which is what would you do about it? So what would make it less lame? If he was at a group,
Because we wanted the Gen Z to step up, but at the same time, I don't think we should cater to every opinion of Gen Z. Because if not, you know what I mean? Oh, let's fix it because what's it? Jefferson Bethke? He said, "Be careful how you reach them, because how you reach them, that's how you're going to keep them." So if you play games to reach them, you're going to have to play games to keep them.
Yeah.
Right. So that's hard. So for somebody like you, like maybe you're too mental, you got too much mental energy, and you get bored real easily. How do we keep somebody like Jaden?
How do we keep somebody?
yeah, be honest.
I think it just really depends on the person. Like, if you actually really want to pursue it, but you know that it's just really not your thing, I think if there's a will, there's a way, right? You know, like, I think you'll find somebody, you know, or even start, like, bringing your friends, you know, make it more exciting, or, like, just kind of, like, be...
But how do you make it more exciting? I mean, because you're present? Because you're there?
Yeah, just, like, if you bring a friend, it makes it more exciting, you know? But I just think that...
Like from the church perspective. Let's say I'm creating a service and I want Jaden to first fall in love with Christ and then maybe step up for Christ. How do I win a Jaden? How do I win a Maya? How could I, you know, because, and I'm not saying that where you're at right now is bad, but how would it be easier for your friends to join you?
Like you're saying, like, what would you do or what would I do?
But how would you change the church structure or system or the service for you to feel comfortable to invite your friends?
I mean, I wouldn't. And that's like, I don't know like what kind of answer you're looking for, but I wouldn't change it because it's worship and a message. And then you do like, or at least from CBC.
Got it, you're
like,
right, you're right.
It's worship, a message, and then small group after. And it's just like, what more do you want? You want you want a concert? Do you
we're
want
talking-
like a-
Jay.
Yeah, I got you. Well, I would say, like, from my experience with youth groups, I'm not a big fan of small groups, especially if it's your first time
Gotcha.
and you're
That's
already
perfect.
going to a small group,
so
right? You know what I'm saying? Or like, hey, what
Yeah, I
if you
don't-
truly never go to church and you want to sit in the back? Let's try it out. They always do the same thing of, yo, let's move everybody to the front. You know what I'm saying? And it's
Raise
just
your
like,
hand if it's your first
yeah,
time
like
here.
and all that stuff. And I get it. It's like, oh yeah, like it's the icebreaker, right?
That's so true because when I went to church and every time they say, hey, everybody hug each other, me and my brother would step out. I'm like, no, I ain't hugging anybody.
Yeah,
and it
that's-
feels artificial, like contrived, like
and
we're
I just
trying
like
to.
I don't know. I never liked small groups. I never liked the games. Like, I think they should just strictly do worship and a message and like let's head out. You know, or
Yeah,
like make it optional at least.
You
know?
guys are talking, but you guys are talking structure. I mean, when I was young, I didn't care about structure. I care about content. I mean,
Yeah.
you want to have a worship service. You want to have a small group talk. You want to stand on your head, stand on the table. You want to do gymnastics. You want to do something funny, maybe a magic trick, knock yourself out. But what about the content? What are you
Totally.
actually saying?
Yeah.
And so I guess my question, Salo came at it, I'm glad legit because we're getting both ends, came at it from the structural, but I want to know about the content. Is there content that's not being covered? Because one of the digs in this data is that the church is addressing, and you've heard your dad and I say this generally, I think it's most true in Gen Z. The church is talking about things nobody cares about. They're asking questions that Gen Z is not asking, and they're giving answers that Gen Z is questioning as really being practical. In other words, if you hear Jaden, you can hear subliminally, hey, that's nice, but in the real world, here's how it actually works. So I guess my point is there's a structural issue, maybe there's some other things you could do in your itinerary, you know, or your schedule, but what about the content? Is the church addressing content?
To a certain degree, I think they are.
Yeah.
I think
was
they
gonna
are.
say.
I think they are because, but the problem is that the struggle is
I'm sorry, you Gen Z?
no, but
What's the matter with you?
I talk to a lot of them, right? Right? But you think they are? You think that you go to church now and you get good content?
Yes.
When you go to church?
I think I do.
I think it's there. I think the problem is right here that some people just don't want to go. And to me, not you, but like to me, how can I get them there to hear the content that is there? I don't think they're not winning them because the content is not there. There's a lot of youth groups out there. They're very dynamic. They do a lot of things, and the content is there.
I think there's only, I really just believe like you can't, there's nothing wrong with the content. I think the content is being delivered. Like I think churches and they've done a way better job of like, you know, getting real and like
Yeah, I
touching
agree.
on the topics that like, were kind of like put in the closet, or like people were asking questions, like they didn't want to hurt anyone's feelings. Like I think I can speak from experience. Like I think churches have done a way better job about like getting real and not worrying about people's feelings. I don't think it's the content, and I don't think it's the structure. Like I think the structure is fine. Like maybe the small groups, like I don't really like the small groups either. Like I don't really like that. But just like worship, and then your your message, and then it's just there's only so much you can do, because that's essentially like that's what church is. And then people, I think it's just getting people to understand like this is what we should be doing with our time. Like this is what we should be doing with our Wednesday nights. This is what we should be doing with our Sunday mornings. Like we should be going to church. We should be showing up, all this stuff. And I just think there's only so much you can do, because at the end of the day, it's up to the person you're inviting, or it's up to the other people. Because if people don't understand, the importance of a Christian lifestyle and living it out, and it's a commitment. Like I get it. Like people don't have the motivation to go to church, always read their Bible, but it's like there's a lot to, this is just a little bit of like following Jesus. Like yes, you're lazy, you're tired or whatever, but it's like essentially this is what it is. This is, even if I'm lazy, I'm going to read my Bible. Even if I'm tired, I'm going to go to church. Even if I think it's lame. Even if I'm bored. Even if I zone out. Okay, maybe not if you zone out, but just like if you're bored. Like I get bored. I get bored during church sometimes. Like I can't lie. You're just sitting there. You're watching. But it's like, even if you don't remember everything in the like sermon, you're still being nourished, and you're still being connected, and you're still keeping that routine of going to church. And it's good discipline. And I just think it's a lot of people just don't understand that.
Let me just push back and get a little more clarity from both you guys, to be specific, because this was happening when I was young too. So, and I'm wondering about now. Well, I'm not wondering. At least, well, I am wondering from your perspective, but I'm looking at the stats here, and I'm just curious. When was the last time you walked into a youth group, for instance, and there was a full court press, clear, compelling defense of the sanctity of human life from a biblical perspective? A topic of discussion on abortion. Ooh. When was the last time you walked into a youth group, for instance, and you had a full, clear, compelling defense of sexual purity, or on so-called same-sex marriage? And because these are issues that Gen Zers, to get back to your earlier point, they walk in, they've made a personal commitment to Jesus, they go to church, and they hear something other than what they're accustomed to as being good, inclusivity, which is the banner to basically compromise, right, on issues like sexual impurity and abortion, all the trigger issues. And so we need that clarity. So in terms of Gen Z, even millennials, when was the last time you sat in on a discourse like that?
I mean, I think, obviously, I haven't been to like any messages or like sermons, services where they strictly talk about abortion. Like, hi guys, we're going to have a sermon on abortion and what we think about it. We're going to have a sermon on, same-sex marriage and sexual purity and all this stuff. And it's like, no one preaches like a sermon based off of that, but they still, like, I think they've done a good job, like, or at least from my experience, it's like they've touched on it, and they've just, used it as an example. Like, for example, this is why, life starts at conception and all this stuff. And I just think, like, obviously you're not gonna have a whole sermon on it, but it is touched on, and it's not
Maya,
ignored.
do you think that we should be better at preaching more a relationship with Christ and what that means, more than topical, like George is asking? Because to me, I'm like, those topics, I'm like, I understand that they're important, but going to youth service and today's kids to talk about that, I think that would be a turnoff. I think I would rather say, preach a relationship with Christ and then guide them in those areas.
I think so, because that's your foundation. Your relationship with Christ is your foundation. If you don't have the foundation, you're just going to jump to, oh, something's wrong with me, I got to fix myself. Like, that's not, Jesus teaches, he loves
Exactly.
us.
And I guess that's the concern. It doesn't get past the affirmation.
Yeah,
So there's the love and the encouragement, and there's spur unto one another into good works. Look out for your neighbor. Those things are very valuable and important because they speak to the character of God. But the point is this: in the other side, in the secular world, they don't hesitate to go topical, and they're there in 2 seconds, and they park there.
Yeah.
And so this is what I mean. This is what I mean about my worry. We're not connecting at the important touch points, and we're not making decisions up here. Everybody, whether it's Gen Z or somebody who's 90, they're making decisions at the tactical level, at the situational level. That's the point. And my worry is that the church isn't delving into the weeds because they're ugly and messy and very uncomfortable.
Well, Maya, let me ask you a question. I understand we got to address these topics, but don't you think that the Gen Z already knows what's right and wrong to a certain degree? Like most of our, like most kids, like I know that this is wrong, but I'm still going to do it. I don't think. Do you think the problem is
yeah.
that? Do you think the problem is like I don't know the abortion's wrong? They already know. I just think they're lazy, or they don't want to admit it, but they know it's wrong.
Like, I think a lot of people, like, making decisions or just, like, speaking or giving opinions, they know it's wrong for sure. Like, they know. But I think it has a lot to do. Sorry, it has a lot to do with like what what other people say. Like, oh, everyone's gonna like support abortion. Like, oh yeah, like pro-choice, all this stuff. Like, women, all that stuff, just because other people are saying it. But I think most Christians, at least, like, they know, like, there's some Christians who support abortion. Like, there's some Christians who support same-sex marriage. And I think deep down, they know it goes against the Bible, but it's just, like, love, inclusivity, women.
Yeah,
Well, let me say,
I wanna ask for your thoughts.
Frankie says she is awesome. Frankie says that. I don't know who Frankie is.
Thank you,
Makes
Frankie.
very valid points. She's on the right track, putting God first before anything else. Striker Crawford says we can definitely keep praying that. And Sarah says, I love hearing their perspective. This is great. Alamo Talk, amazing. He says, page turn, let the new generation lead. They're so much better than we will ever be. God bless it.
Well,
let the generation lead.
That's very kind. Yes, from your
Thank
mouth to
you.
God's ears. I want you to elaborate on that, Jaden, because that's a worry that I have. Man lives with me, so he knows I'm concerned about that. I'm worried about these touch points. I'm worried because the reality is that you guys are a very welcome exception in this regard, because the vast majority, and we can see this, from voting records, the Gen Z is overwhelmingly to the left on social issues, overwhelmingly to the left. And so they're not getting their narratives, they're not getting their rationale, as flawed as it is. I'm sorry, they're not getting their rationale from enough CBCs and from enough hillsides. We need more, because we know Pastor Ed is bold, and we know that the church has been out there addressing these issues at the tactical level, what he calls the trending topics. Yeah. That's just not happening anywhere near enough. And I guess that's my appeal. Where am I going wrong? I mean, should it happen more? Should it happen less? Is there a value to that? Should we? Obviously, you need a foundation. You don't want to put the cart before the horse and then say, oh yeah, by the way, Jesus loves you. But your gut hunch on that. I'll ask you the same question I asked Maya. When was the last time you walked into a youth group? And by the way, Maya, I wasn't proposing that announcement today. We're going to be talking about abortion. I'm suggesting, like you said, cleverly sort of weave it into the topic so it doesn't look odd and strange.
Oh, yeah.
But
Okay.
weave it into the topic and into the overall theme.
Yeah.
But when was the last time, even tangentially, that you heard anything like that?
I mean, the last time I went to a youth group, they were talking about like Jesus loves you. It's just very surface level. I don't think that they're really addressing any of those things at all. And I think they should, but it does depend on the audience. Like, I think when me and my friend Oliver went to your Bible study, he never goes to youth group, never does any of that, right? He just doesn't. He's on the same page as me. Yeah, it's just like, that's like, a good example, because like we're practicing the
You're talking about the
same-
men's study
Uh-huh.
that Nico and I on
And I think
Wednesday morning.
just
Shout out.
like how raw it was, and like how true. The moment we stepped out, he's like, we got to go next week. Like, you know what I'm saying? So it's just really different. And I think
I am still waiting for you guys to return, though. I'm kidding. He's at school. He's at school.
What time is that at?
It's like early, man.
Wednesday mornings. Wednesday
Like,
mornings at 7:30.
can't.
Yes, Wednesday morning at 7:30. Yeah, he doesn't want to be at the class. I see. He doesn't want to be at the
Of
class.
course not.
I ask this because there's got to be a theological. There's got to be a conceptual. We have to talk principles. Those things are valuable, but I'm always thinking about what is the counter doing, what is the culture doing? Because we want to win hearts and minds, right? Getting back to Maya's bringing us back to the Great Commission. We're supposed to go out there and make disciples. Not really interested in conversions, much more interested in disciples. Jesus didn't say anything about conversions, actually. He was interested in disciples, people that actually walk with him and follow him and love him and love his word and want to please him. This is what concerns me. To Maya's point, I think she nailed it on the head. A personal commitment to Jesus, yet a divestiture from church. I'm worried about that, because church is a place. By the way, it's not optional in the scripture. We're told everywhere that we should be attending church regularly. And this is from a guy where I've attended church all my life, and I've been spotty. I've been really, really great, and you know that. We've been really, really great for years, and other years we're not so great, and we're really, really great, and then not so great. So, but God says that we ought not despise that. We ought not avoid it. We should be in church. Why should we be in church? To love one another, encourage one another to good works. We should be instructing one another and learning. This is where we get to kind of learn how to imitate the character and priorities of Christ. I think that's really, really important. And yet, I'm there's a big gap. And so, anyway, any thoughts on? I'm going to go back to what Salo said. Any thoughts on some things practical things that we can continue doing to shore up more involvement from people in the 18 to 24 year range?
I can't think of any because you can't change, you can't change. You can only change so much. Like if people want to come and if people want to make that commitment to come and hear about Jesus and hear about, what he has in store for you, then that's great. But if someone genuinely just isn't about that and just
right.
lazy and just already has their own opinion, no matter what you do, if you put a freaking carnival in the church, like they're not going to come.
Yep.
It's church.
That's right.
So it's like, it really just depends on the person. It's more about getting the people you want to come or just people in general to understand why it's important. And it's like, you can't do that unless they come to church. So it's kind of hard. So that's where we come in. And that's where, not like me and Jaden, but just like other people in the church, trying to reach out to other people in the church, bringing them back, just be like, hey, you need to come to church. This is why, blah, blah, blah. All that stuff. But I don't think you can you can't change the...
Love the why. A lot of times it's what without the why.
Yeah.
Explain what you believe in and why you believe it. Thoughts?
I mean, I agree with mine. I don't think like putting like what'd you say like carnival is really gonna bring people. I mean, they've definitely done that in the past and it didn't work. So I mean, I don't know. I feel like it's definitely a motivation thing. Behind it, just actively wanting to pursue God is a big, huge part. And I think like a good starting place is reading the Bible. I think that's people's own personal church. And I think a lot of people don't even know that. And I think if they just crack open the Bible, really start connecting, it kind of just provides like a feeling that only God can provide and they want more of it. And then that's when they go to church.
That's good. And it's interesting because
It's good.
I know a lot of people started. I just heard like from other people and also like just social media. Like a lot of people. Sorry, I heard from like social media and other people. Like a lot of people just like immediately went to church after the Charlie Kirk assassination. Like there was just a huge increase in church, and it got me thinking, like why? What is that? Like I think people were just looking for a place of like hope, and so it kind of goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning. Like people only want Jesus when crap hits the fan or whatever you said, and it's like when the world is crazy and when this guy this horrible thing happens to him, and it's like everyone's just like looking for hope. And I was raised in church, like I know what church is, I'm gonna go to church, like now is when I need to get serious about my faith. And it's like it just sucks that had to happen for people to realize like I need to go to church, like tomorrow isn't promised. But it's like as Christians we should live every day like it's our last day and just for Jesus to the full to the best of your ability. And I just think of that.
Please go.
I would say like I agree with Maya, especially the point where like you should live like today, like tomorrow's not promised. And I think when I went to that Christian camp during the summer for about like 2 weeks, they were really trying to promote the Jesus for everybody, like whether it's games, I don't know, like dance parties, like what were we doing with that? Like, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like they were just trying to like do something that everybody could have fun with. But one thing that impacted me the most was we were driving back from whitewater rafting at a Christian camp. And they pulled over like suddenly and everyone's like, yo, like, what are we doing, right? And we stepped off and we went to a cemetery and it wasn't planned at all.
Oh, wow.
And this was probably my first week, still dreading, wanting to go home, right? And I stepped off and you could just immediately feel like just heaviness, all around you. And I honestly got really emotional too. I was like, wow, like so many people that have, like 1948 to 2024, 2025, whenever the year they died, and that dash is their life, right? So I'm looking at all these and I'm thinking to myself, like, I could get on that bus right now and I could just die or something like that, you know, like get in a car accident, anything like that.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at it and all these people's dashes, and I'm like, I'm wondering how they handled like their life or what they did with that dash. And it just makes you think that you're living like you're gonna live forever, doing whatever could hurt you, what feels good in the moment, because obviously when you follow God, it provides that long-term presence in you that really just fills you. But whether it's like drugs, anything like sex, like these people living their life, like they could have lived that life and they never knew Jesus only because they chased after the things that made them feel good in the moment. So I'm thinking to myself, like, wow, like 1948, 2024, like if I die tomorrow, where am I going to go? And I think that really just put me in a trance of like thinking about that. And then after that moment is when I really, it just made me think more. And it just made me want to read my Bible more. It made me want to chase God because, dude, I don't want to go to hell, you know? Like, it's just like, and it just, I don't know, it just makes you think. But when I say that they try to promote a Jesus for everybody, the thing that wasn't even meant to happen during those 2 weeks impacted me the most.
I want to park on that last thought. I love that. It's a great story, and that's really a question that I think everybody should wrestle with. What are you doing with your dash? Does a dash without Christ even matter?
What are you doing with your dash?
And does a dash without Christ even matter? I mean, it's a dashless life, really.
T-shirt.
I want to get back to what you said. It's the same. I want to dissect your language. It's the same Jesus. We're not changing Jesus for each person. It's just that everybody's different. Connect with people, find out what the best way to communicate Jesus. So you can have a million different ways to communicate the same Jesus to people. And what they were doing sometimes is that there was sort of a boilerplate mentality and thinking that everybody's going to connect with Jesus the same way, and that's not necessarily here. So know your audience, bottom line. And here they went off from routine, and boy, that was a great way to connect with everybody. Observations.
I think that, on the story or what?
Whatever, man.
I think that's really.
It's all you.
I think that's cool. Well, not the graveyard, but I think that's cool. Like you got impacted from something. I really. What are you doing with your dash? This is good.
You like?
I'm copywriting that. Like,
Yeah,
I'm copywriting. Yeah.
But no, it's just it has to do with the whole thing that happened in September, with Charlie Kirk. It's just people have to realize the reality and ugliness of the world against people, not just against people who speak out for Jesus, but just people. Life happens. You're not gonna live forever on this earth, and people don't realize people don't live that. They you said they live they're gonna live forever. Yes, you're gonna. What's the thing that Dr. Sheets said about our lives? Sorry, I hate this. He said everyone has everlasting life, but not everyone has eternal life. And so he said I don't really know it doesn't make sense. But he said that you're either gonna spend your life in hell or in heaven, and it's people what you said. If people do what makes them feel good in the moment, it's they don't realize that it's eventually going to lead them to hell. But obviously, it's easy to not think about that. When you're having fun, it's just oh hell, you know what I mean? You don't just you don't think that. You know what I mean?
That's
so
really
it's just,
profound. Everybody's going to last forever, but not everybody's going to live forever.
I think
Yeah.
kind of piggyback,
Say again.
just off that topic.
No, go ahead.
I
please.
think since we're quoting Dr. Sheets,
shout out Dr. Sheets.
in Bible class he talked about Kairos and Chronos. And
What?
Kairos and Chronos.
Okay, good.
Basically Chronos meaning the time that Jesus and all that stuff, but
When you were younger.
yeah,
you got saved.
Kairos was the moment where you knew you wanted to follow Jesus. And I think everybody eventually will have that moment where you'll be impacted or you'll feel something that would make you want to follow Jesus, right? So I would say, I'm gonna be honest, right? So the camp during the summer, I wasn't really following Jesus. I mean, I was doing, I don't even, kind of say whatever I want.
It's R-rated.
I mean, it's PG-13 version,
So,
nah, but I was just doing a bunch of dumb shit, right? So throughout the summer, and I think that graveyard was my Kairos, where if I'll go 20 years from now, that moment was my Kairos, where I remember where I was most impacted. I felt Jesus. Like, I felt it. You know, I've never even felt that before. But in that moment, I remember the time, I remember the place, like, and I think eventually everybody will have that. But the point he brought up was, if you don't know your Kairos, then I don't know if you're really following Jesus. You might want to reevaluate that, you know?
Yeah. Wow. That's profound.
I was gonna say we
Bible
should tell
class.
Dr. Sheets.
See?
I was gonna tell Dr. Sheets that, you know, we gave him a shout out. He watched, but you just
Shout out Sheets. Like,
Well, look, we're gonna wrap this up now, but I want to thank you guys for stepping into this space. It's not easy. Look, there's a lot of people who haven't had the cojones to do that, so I appreciate you guys doing that and being honest and being unvarnished, but being eloquent and making your points and being clear about that. Your dad doesn't like the word vulnerable, so I won't use it. I don't either. It's not that you were vulnerable, but I appreciate you being sincere about that. I'm gratified. I could tell from the way Salo was engaging that we're both very grateful that you guys are out there and that you're walking with the Lord and at least seeking Him and growing in Him. You certainly haven't arrived. God knows I haven't, but I love seeing passion and I love seeing the pursuit. May the Lord continue to bless you guys in everything that you do. May He bless your footsteps and continue to pray for your buddies at school, right? Maybe we can bring them on next time, right? Salo, have a round table. And then we will do a pre-announcement. This is
Bring Dr.
actual
Sheets on.
R-rated. So let's have some hard stories about the faith. So anyway, thank you for joining us this week. I hope you guys got a lot out of this. I certainly did. And we hope to see you next week. God bless you.